Welcome to Towards Tomorrow, a presentation on the great vision and work of Sri Aurobindo on the destiny of mankind and the evolution of a divine life on earth. Sri Aurobindo was a rare, multifaceted personality. He was a scholar, writer, literary critic, poet, philosopher, social thinker, revolutionary, nationalist, commentator on Indian culture and the scriptures, yogi, and a rishi, all rolled into one. In fact, one wonders how one man could have been all this at the same time and achieve all that he has achieved in one lifetime. He was born on the 15th August 1872 in Kolkata in an affluent family. When he was a child of 7 years, his father, who was enamored of Western education and culture, sent him to England for education with strict instructions that he should not come into contact with anything Indian while in England. Sri Aurobindo studied at St. Paul's School in London and King's College, Cambridge. In a brilliant academic career, Sri Aurobindo mastered not only English but also Greek and Latin and familiarized himself with many other European languages and gained a deep insight into the culture of ancient, medieval and modern Europe. He also started writing poetry in English at a very young age. He appeared for the Indian Civil Service examination, which was then a very coveted and prestigious occasion, and performed brilliantly. However, since he did not feel any call to serve the British, who were at that time subjecting India to slavery, he got himself disqualified by not appearing for the horse riding test. We have to understand that what Sri Aurobindo represents in the world's history is not a teaching, not even a revelation, but it's a decisive action direct from the Supreme. Sri Aurobindo returned to India in the year 1893 at the age of 21. As soon as he set his foot on the Indian soil at Apollo Bandar in Mumbai, a vast peace and calm descended upon him, never to leave him thereafter. This was one of his early spiritual experiences, and unknowingly and unasked for, one may say that his spiritual life had also begun at that very moment, although its full fruition was to come only much later. Having grown up in England with a completely Occidental education, totally oblivious of India, her people, her religion and culture, back in India in Baroda, he now sought for the wisdom and truth of the Orient. He plunged himself wholeheartedly into the depths of Indian culture. He learned Sanskrit, several modern Indian languages, his own mother tongue Bengali, and soon assimilated the spirit of Indian civilization in all its aspects. He spent 13 years in Baroda in the administrative and educational services of the state. These were years of intense self-culture for him, of literary activity and study of the Vedas and other scriptures. A great part of the last years of this period in Baroda was also spent by him in silent political activity. In 1906, Sri Aurobindo moved to Calcutta as the principal of the Bengal National College. He openly joined the movement for India's liberation and, revolutionizing the then moderate and ineffectual stand of the Congress, fixed in the national consciousness the ideal of complete independence as the only goal of the national freedom movement of that time. Life in Bengal from 1906 to 1910, when he was 34 to 38 years old, saw him at the forefront of the freedom movement and as editor of the daily Vande Mataram, which heralded the Indian Revolution for complete independence. Along with his political activities, Sri Aurobindo also continued to carry on with his inner spiritual life. He was kept under detention for 1 year by the British government in the famous Alipur bomb case. This, however, proved to be a blessing in disguise for him, for during this period he had intense spiritual experiences which set him more firmly on the path of his future spiritual work. The following words of Sri C.R. Das, a leading advocate of the time who defended him in the Alipur bomb case, aptly describe Sri Aurobindo's stature during this turbulent period of his life. To quote, "Long after this turmoil, this agitation will have ceased. He will be looked upon as a poet of patriotism, as the prophet of nationalism and lover of humanity. His words will be echoed and re-echoed not only in India but across the distant seas and lands." Unquote. In 1910, in answer to an inner call and a command from above, Sri Aurobindo withdrew from the political field and sailed to Pondicherry, being sure himself within his conscience that the freedom movement initiated by him would be carried on by others and that his work henceforth lay elsewhere. He believed that he had to work from then on for an inner awakening and a change of consciousness in India and the world, without which there would be no lasting progress and no solution to the pressing and formidable problems which beset mankind. Since then, Pondicherry became a cave of his tapasya, and he immersed himself in intense sadhana to devote himself entirely to his evolving spiritual mission. The year 2010 marks the centenary of his arrival in Pondicherry. In 1914, after 4 years of silent yoga, he started a philosophical monthly in English called the Arya, which embodied much of the inner knowledge that had come to him in his practice of yoga. Most of his important works, The Life Divine, The Synthesis of Yoga, The Human Cycle, The Ideal of Human Unity, The Foundations of Indian Culture, Essays on the Gita, On the Veda, etc., were serialized in this journal. He revealed through the pages of Arya his new message to humanity, man's divine destiny, through the book The Life Divine. The path to its realization through the book The Synthesis of Yoga. The progress of human society towards a divine future through the book The Human Cycle. The realization of the oneness of mankind through the book The Ideal of Human Unity. The nature and evolution of poetry through the book The Future Poetry. The inner meaning and significance of Indian spirituality and civilization through the books The Foundations of Indian Culture, On the Veda, the Upanishads, and Essays on the Gita. His major poetical work is the epic Savitri, a Legend and a Symbol, consisting of about 24,000 lines of blank verse in English, which has been acclaimed as an unparalleled storehouse of spiritual wisdom and as the most powerful artistic work in the world for expanding man's mind towards the Absolute. In the words of Romain Rolland, a Nobel laureate, Sri Aurobindo is one of the greatest thinkers of modern India. He is the most complete synthesis achieved up to the present between the genius of the West and the East. Sri Aurobindo envisioned and strove for a divine evolutionary destiny of man, and from 1910 till his passing in 1950, he remained absorbed in this spiritual work. At the same time, he kept a close watch on all that was happening in India and the world and saw all the movements he had initiated fulfilled or gradually approaching fulfillment. When Sri Rabindranath Tagore, another Nobel laureate from India, who had already known Sri Aurobindo earlier, met him at Pondicherry, he described Sri Aurobindo in the following words, quote, "I could realize he had accumulated within him a silent power of inspiration. I said to him, 'You have the word and we are waiting to accept it from you. India will speak through your voice to the world. Hearken to me.'" Unquote. According to Sri Aurobindo, this world is not an unfortunate accident, nor is it built of random bricks of chance. It's a marvel which moves towards its expression. Sri Aurobindo came to announce this new creation of tomorrow through the coming of what he calls the supramental being. He came not to bring a teaching or a creed, but to show the way to mankind to overpass the past and to open concretely the route towards an imminent and inevitable glorious future. He came to give not just a hope, but a certitude of the splendor towards which the world moves. One of the important messages of Sri Aurobindo to us is that it is not necessary to leave the earth to find the truth. It is not necessary to leave life to find one's soul. It is not necessary to give up the world or to have limited beliefs in order to enter into relation with the Divine. The Divine is everywhere, in everything, and if He is hidden, it is because we do not take the trouble to discover Him. Like his personality, the teaching of Sri Aurobindo is multifaceted. The core of it, however, is his perception that though mind is the highest term yet reached in earthly evolution, it is not the highest possible. Mind is an ignorance seeking after truth, but there is above it a supermind, or eternal truth consciousness, which is the light and power and bliss of a divine knowledge. It is possible to rise to this truth consciousness, discover one's true self, remain in constant union with the Divine, and bring down the supramental force for the transformation of mind and life and body. It is only the descent of the supermind that the perfection dreamed by all that is highest in humanity can come. Not only the individual, but his social existence also can be remolded into a divine pattern. To realize this possibility has been the dynamic aim of Sri Aurobindo's yoga. It is not Sri Aurobindo's object to develop any one religion or to amalgamate the older religions or to found any new religion, or any of these things would lead away from his central purpose. The one aim of his yoga is an inner self-development by which each one who follows it can in time discover the one self in all and evolve a higher consciousness than the mental, which will divinize human nature. It was at this stage of Sri Aurobindo's life in Pondicherry that Madame Mirra Alfassa, who later came to be known affectionately and reverentially as the Mother, entered the life of Sri Aurobindo as a collaborator. Mirra was born in Paris, France on 21st February 1878. Even as a child, she had unusual dreams, visions, and spiritual experiences, and felt constantly that she had a work to do, a mission to fulfill upon the earth. She was a brilliant student and acquired a great mastery in painting and music. In the early years of the 20th century, she also went to Algeria and gained a profound knowledge of occultism. But the call of the Supreme was always foremost in her life, and in Paris she became the center of a group of ardent seekers and idealists. While pursuing a deep inner spiritual life, the Mother had frequent visions in which she was guided by spiritual personages, many of whom she met physically later in life. One in particular she called Krishna, the Lord of the Gita. When she came to Pondicherry on March 29, 1914, at her very first glance at Sri Aurobindo, she recognized in him the Krishna of her vision and knew that her place and her work were with him in India. The next day, she recorded in her diary the following words: "It matters little that there are thousands of beings plunged in the densest ignorance. He whom we saw yesterday is on earth. His presence is enough to prove that a day will come when darkness shall be transformed into light, and thy reign shall be indeed established upon earth." She collaborated with Sri Aurobindo in starting the monthly journal Arya, but after a few months, due to the exigencies of the First World War, she had to go back to France. In 1916, she sailed for Japan and returned to Pondicherry in 1920, never to go back again. Here are a few recordings of her impressions about her life and mission in her own words. She wrote, "I am French by birth and early education. I am Indian by choice and predilection. In my consciousness, there is no antagonism between the two. On the contrary, they combine very well and complete one another. I know also that I can be of service to both equally, for my only aim in life is to give a concrete form to Sri Aurobindo's great teaching, and in his teaching he reveals that all the nations are essentially one and meant to express the divine unity upon earth through an organized and harmonious diversity." With the arrival of the Mother in Pondicherry, the number of disciples around Sri Aurobindo gradually increased. This informal grouping eventually took shape as Sri Aurobindo Ashram. From its inception in November 1926, Sri Aurobindo entrusted the full material and spiritual charge of the ashram to the Mother. Under her guidance, which covered a span of nearly 50 years, the ashram has grown into a large, many-faceted community. The creation of a new world, a new humanity, a new society, expressing and embodying the new consciousness was her goal. Sri Aurobindo Ashram, founded and built up by the Mother in this way, was her first step towards the fulfillment of this goal. Establishment of Sri Aurobindo Society and Auroville, the city of dawn, were the next steps, more exterior, taken by her, seeking to widen the base of this endeavor to establish harmony between soul and body, spirit and nature, heaven and earth, in the collective life of humanity. The pictures that you are now going to see are indications of how the mother was personally supervising and directing all activities in the ashram. A story day in the mother's classroom for children in the ashram school. The mother on a visit to the ashram library. The mother at the ashram power generating unit. The mother left her body in November 1973, but her consciousness and presence are there as concretely as ever, and her new creation continues to grow under her constant guidance and inspiration. Let us now have a closer look at Sri Aurobindo Ashram. The ashram has been an organic development, a natural and growing expression of the ideals of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. At first, only a few of Sri Aurobindo's associates lived with him as members of a household. As years passed, others joined, but it was in 1920, after the mother's final arrival, that the numbers began to increase and a collective life took shape. The term ashram is commonly understood to be a kind of monastery, a cloister for recluses and ascetics. But this was not what the word meant in the ages of the Vedas, the Upanishads, or the epics. Sannyasa or asceticism, as popularly understood, was never accepted by Sri Aurobindo as part of his yoga, and the ashram at Pondicherry is thus very different from popular conceptions of an ashram. Its members are not sannyasis. They do not wear ochre robes or practice rigorous asceticism, but are sadhaks, seekers, and aspirants of a life based on spiritual realization, the ideal being the attainment of the life divine here on earth and in physical existence. This was the character of the ashram when it had 8 members, and it is so today when it has 1,200 with a large floating population of visitors and temporary residents. The stress is on a change in consciousness and nature with a view to preparing men and society for the higher stage in evolution. All activities in the ashram are centered on this faith or truth. They include agricultural farms, workshops, industries, arts, and an educational center embracing all disciplines from nursery to postgraduate levels. Each one chooses the work most congenial to his nature and does it in a spirit of service and perfection, keeping always in view the aim of integral transformation. This erring race of human beings dreams always of perfecting their environment by the machinery of government and society. But it is only by the perfection of the soul within that the outer environment can be perfected. Sri Aurobindo says, "What thou art within, that outside thee thou shalt enjoy. No machinery can rescue thee from the law of thy being." With trust in the sublime destiny of man, 1,200 members of Sri Aurobindo Ashram, coming from all races and religions, take up all types of work, as it is not rejection of the world, but its transformation that they aspire for. The following words of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother govern all life and work in the ashram. True spirituality is not to renounce life, but to make life perfect with a divine perfection. All life is only a lavish and manifold opportunity given to us to discover, realize, and express the divine. In works, aspiration towards perfection is true spirituality. The aim of its economics would be not to create a huge engine of production, whether of the competitive or the cooperative kind, but to give to men, not only to some but to all men, each in his highest possible measure, the joy of work according to their own nature and free leisure to grow inwardly, as well as a simply rich and beautiful life for all. It's not what you do that matters most, but the way in which it is done and the consciousness you put into it. We are not working for a race or a people or a continent or for a realization of which only Indians or only Orientals are capable. Our aim is not either to found a religion or a school of philosophy or a school of yoga, but to create a ground of spiritual growth and experience in a way which will bring down a greater truth beyond the mind but not inaccessible to the human mind and consciousness. All can pass who are drawn to that truth, whether they are from India or elsewhere, from the east or from the west. Thank you.